Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So welcome everyone for today morning reading. We're reading from 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita titled as Knowledge of the Absolute and the verse number 24 onwards. So in the previous 4 verses from 20 to 23, Lord Shri Krishna spoke about those who approach devatas for their desires. How Krishna strengthened the faith of the worshipper, how Krishna bestows the gift, the blessings that they want from the devatas, and the destination of those who worship devatas, the result, what they get, and why people approach devatas. These 4 questions have been addressed. Now in 24 verse, Krishna speaks about impersonalists. Avyaktam vyaktimapannam maniyante mamabhudayah param bhavam ajananto mama avyayam manuttamam. Avyaktam vyaktamapannam manyante mam abhudaya. Buddhaya, mura means foolish. Buddha means intelligent, self-realized in one sense. Abudhaya means less intelligent, like that. Parambhavam ajananto, not knowing my supreme existence. Ajananto, jananto no, ajananto not knowing. Mama avvayam anuttamam, not knowing my supreme existence, which is avvayam, which is imperishable, anuttamam, the finest. In other words, an intelligent man who did not know me perfectly think that I, the Supreme Personality Krishna, was impersonal before and have now assumed the personality, which means when he appears in this world, he takes a shape, but otherwise he does not have form. He is formless. Sounds familiar? Many modern day religions believe that our God does not have form. Due to their small knowledge, they do not know my higher nature, which is imperishable and supreme purport. Those who are worshippers of demigods have been described as less intelligent persons, and here the impersonalists are also similarly described. Krishna in his personal form is here speaking before Arjuna, and still due to ignorance, impersonalists argue that the Supreme Lord ultimately has no form. Yamunacharya, a great devotee of the Lord in the disciplic succession, Ramanujacharya, has written a very appropriate verse in this connection, and he says, My dear Lord, devotees like Vyasa and Narada know you to be the personality to Godhead. By understanding different Vedic literatures, one can come to know your characteristics, your form, and your activities. One can thus understand that you are the Supreme Personality Godhead. But those who are in the modes of passion and ignorance, the demons, the non-devotees, cannot understand you. They are unable to understand you. However expert such non-devotees may be in discussing Vedanta, the Upanishads, and other Vedic literatures, it is not possible for them to understand the personality of Godhead. So, in other words, even if you see the modern day religions, mainly out of Abrahamic tradition, they all believe in the impersonal form. Yes, not impersonal form, impersonal existence. You go to church, there's no form of the Lord. You go to mosque, there's no form of the Lord. In fact, they consider it to be an offense, great aparad, to ascribe a form to the Supreme Person. And that is why they're against deity worship, what they call as idol worship offensively. Then similarly, you see in modern day Sukhism also. So if you see, all of them have the same thing. Similarly in Judaism, Torah is the sacred book. In all of these, they worship book, the words of wisdom, the words spoken by the messenger of the supreme truth or absolute truth. And they do not, in fact, in Sikhism, they do not even want to ascribe form. You cannot draw a picture of any of the gurus, like Guru Govind Dev, etc. You cannot, because they have merged into the impersonal, so they do not have a form. There was a movie, remember? We saw that. So there was no image. In the very beginning, disclaimer was shown. The point I'm trying to make here is, this is not something new. This is not something which is outside of the Vedic paradigm or something has come up recently. Krishna is speaking about them here. Krishna is, the intention that I was speaking behind this is what the complete knowledge means. You have anything and everything covered. It's not that because it is a modern day creation, so Krishna has not spoken about it. Krishna is speaking about them. And he's calling them Abudhaya. Yes, they're worshipping, but they're abudaya, less intelligent, because they're ascribing me formless, or they are calling me formless. Now, Prabhupada in the purport, rest of the purport gives uh, evidences of Krishna's form. Next paragraph. In the Brahma Samhita, it is stated that personality regarded cannot be understood simply by study of the Vedanta literature. Only by the mercy of the Supreme Lord can the personality of the Supreme be known. Therefore, in this verse, it is clearly stated that not only are the worshippers of demigods less intelligent, but those non-devotees engaged in Vedanta and speculation with literature without the intent of true knowledge, Krishna consciousness, are also less intelligent. And for them, it is not possible to understand God's personal nature. Persons who are under the impression that the absolute truth is impersonal and described as abudaya, which means those who do not know the ultimate feature of the absolute truth. In Srimad Bhagavatam, it is stated that supreme realization begins from the impersonal Brahman and then rises to the localized supersoul, but the ultimate reward in the absolute truth is the personality Godhead. Modern impersonalists, now Prabhupada is quoting what modern impersonalists are still less intelligent, for they do not know, for they do not even follow their great predecessor Shankaracharya, who has specifically stated Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. The fact that, next paragraph, no one can understand Krishna without rendering devotion service and without developing Krishna consciousness. The Bhagavatam says, Tathapi te deva padambujattvaya prasadaleshang grahita evahi janati tattvam bhagavan mahimno nachanya eko pichiram vichinvan. My Lord, if one is favored by even a slight trace of the mercy of your lotus feet, he can understand the greatness of your personality. But those who speculate to understand the Supreme Personality of God are unable to know you, even though they continue to study the Vedas for many years. One cannot understand the Supreme Personality of God, Krishna, is found Guna Rupa Namalila simply by mental speculation or by discussing Vedic scriptures. One must understand him by devotional service, which means theory alone would not help. You have to perform experimentation. And what is experimentation? Bhakti means practical action. That is rendering service. When one is fully engaged in Krishna consciousness, beginning with the chanting of Mahamantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, then only can one understand the Supreme Personality of God. And non-devotee impersonal thinks that Krishna has a body made of the material nature, that all his activities, his form, everything are Maya. These impersonals are known as Mayavadis. They do not know the ultimate truth. The 20th verse clearly states, Kamas tasya hitanyana prapadantya devata. Those who are blinded by lustful desires surrender to different demigods. It is accepted that besides the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there are demigods who have their different planets, and the Lord also has a planet. As stated in the 23rd verse, Devan Deva Yajo Yanti Madhbhakta Yanti Mamapi. The worshippers of the demigods go to different planets of the demigods, and those who are devotees of the Lord Krishna go to the Krishna Lok planet. Although this is clearly stated, the foolish impersonal still maintain that the Lord is formless, and these forms are impositions. Array, when Krishna has a planet, when Devatas have planet, how can you say they are formless? On the study of Gita, does it appear that the demigods and their abodes are impersonal? Clearly, neither the demigods nor Krishna are impersonal. They are persons. Krishna is the supreme personality Godhead, and he has his own planet, and the demigod have theirs. Therefore, the monastic contention the ultimate truth is formless and that form is imposed does not hold true. It is clearly stated here that it is not imposed. From the Bhagavad Gita, we can clearly understand that the forms of demigod and the form of the Supreme Lord are simultaneously existing, and Lord Krishna is Satchidananda, eternal blissful knowledge. The Vedas also contain the Supreme Absolute Truth is Anandamayo Bhyasat, of a nature full of blissful pleasure, and that is a reservoir of unlimited auspiciousness. Akhila Rasa Murti Krishna. This is the first verse of Nectar Devotion. And in the Gita, the Lord says that although he is Aja, he still appears. These are the facts that we should understand from the Bhagavad Gita. We cannot understand how the Supreme Personality of God can be impersonal. The imposition theory of the impersonalist monist is false as far as the statements of Gita are concerned. It is clear herein that the Supreme Absolute Truth, Krishna, has both forms and personality. Text number 25. So, impersonalists are still nonetheless engaged in culture of knowledge because they're following Vedic culture. So maybe they have a misunderstanding or they don't have a clarity that Lord has a form, but because they're following austerities, penances, path of purity very nicely, very strictly, then why Lord does not reveal themselves to or himself to them, or why Lord does not show his mercy to them? Next text talks about it. 25. Naham prakasha sarvasya yogamaya samavritah mudoyam na vijanati lokamamajam avyam. I never manifest to the foolish and unintelligent. For them, I am covered by my internal potency, and therefore they do not know that I am unborn and infallible. Which means, except for bhakta, a pure devotee, as per to say, nobody can understand the Lord as He is. Now, why we are able to understand the Lord as He is to some extent? Because we all are studying the writings of Srila Prabhupada. We have been taught by Srila Prabhupada. Because Srila Prabhupada was a pure devotee and we are hearing from him, we are reading his writings, his commentary, because of which we are able to comprehend. But the point is made here is somebody tries to understand on his own, he cannot come to that conclusion. Why? The foremost conclusion that you have to render bhakti or devotional service, he has to take that. And there has to have a bona fide teacher for that. So that's the point here. People cannot understand, and without engaging in bhakti, in other words, except for pure devotee, nobody can understand the Lord as He is. Purport. It may be argued that since Krishna was visible to everyone when He was present on this earth, then how can it be said He is not manifest to everyone? But actually, He was not manifest to everyone. When Krishna was present, there were only few people who could understand Him to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the assembly of Kurus, when Shishupal spoke against Krishna's being elected president of the assembly, Bhishma supported him and proclaimed him to be the Supreme Lord. So many of the Pandavas and few others knew that he was the Supreme, but not everyone. So very beautiful point Prabhupada is writing. Although even if Krishna has to come and stand before you, yet you cannot understand him. So this question that if you show me God, then I'll believe does not hold true in case of absolute truth. You getting it? Because Krishna was present in the assembly of the Kurus, yet there were many who did not understand Krishna. Shishupal was finding fault, and many came to support Shishupal. When Bhishma, others got very angry at him. So that's the point Prabhupada is making. So seeing is believing could be true in the material world. But when it comes to spiritual subject matter, seeing is believing is not true. That's a point being proven here. He was not revealed to the non-devotees in the common man, and therefore in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that, but for his pure devotees, all men consider him to be like themselves. He was manifest only to his devotees as a reservoir of all pleasure, but to others, to an unintelligent non-devotees, he was covered by his internal potency. In the prayers of Kunti, Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said, Lord is covered by the curtain of Yogamaya, and thus ordinary people cannot understand him. This Yogamaya curtain is also confirmed in the Ishopanishad Hiranmayana Patrena, in which the devotee prays, Hiranmayana Patrena Satyasapihitam Mukham Tattvam Pushan Aparno Apavarno Satyadharmaya Drishtite. So like this. The Brahma Jyoti is a covering of the internal potency. But you kindly remove this glowing effulgence that impedes my seeing your Satchidananda Vigraha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead in its transcendental form of bliss, knowledge is covered by the internal potency of the Brahma Jyoti, and the less intelligent impersonals cannot see the Supreme on this account. It is stated in Srimad Bhagavatam in the prayer of Brahma, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, O Super Solar Master of all mystery, who can calculate your potency and past tense in this world? You are always expanding your internal potency, and therefore no one can understand you. Learned scientists and learned scholars can examine the atomic constitution of the material world or even the planet, but still they are unable to calculate your energy and potency, although you are present before them. The Supreme Personality Godhead Krishna is not only unborn, but also avya, inexhaustible. His eternal form is bliss and knowledge, and his energies are all inexhaustible. They never perish. So that's the point. The foolish non-devotees, you can call it non-devotees, cannot understand Krishna. They cannot come to the conclusion of the supreme realization. The Lord has a personal form. He has an abode. There are different flavors and rasas by which we can exchange relationship with the Lord. This is all phantasmagoria for less intelligent people. Text number 26. So, Arjuna pondered, does it mean Krishna, just like Jiva does not, or Jiva fails to understand you? Mighty Lord, do you also fail to understand living entities? Krishna says, come on, Arjuna. Vedaham samatitani vartamanani cha Arjuna bhavishyani cha bhutani mam tu vedana kashana. O Arjuna, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, I know everything that has happened in the past, all that is happening in the present. and all things that are yet to come. I also know all living entities, but me, no one knows. Okay, somebody would like to read the first paragraph of the purport? Krishna Chandra Prabhu, go ahead. You can unmute.
Okay, Prabhu. Purport, first paragraph, Prabhu.
Yes.
Here, the question of personality and impersonality is clearly stated. If Krishna, the form of Supreme Personality Godhead, were Maya, material, as the impersonalists consider him to be, then, like the living entity, he would change his body and forget everything about his past life. Anyone with a material body cannot remember his past life, nor can he foretell his future life, nor can he predict the outcome of his present life. Therefore, he cannot know what is happening in past, present, and future unless one is liberated from material contamination. He cannot know past, present, and future. Unlike the ordinary human being, Lord Krishna says that he completely knows what happened in the past, what is happening in the present, and what will happen in the future. In the fourth chapter, we have seen that Lord Krishna remembers instructing Viveshavan, the sun god, millions of years ago. Krishna knows every living entity because he is situated in every living heart as the super soul. But despite his presence in every living entity as super soul and his presence as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the less intelligent, even if able to realize the impersonal Brahman, cannot realize Sri Krishna as the Supreme Person. Certainly, the transcendental body of Sri Krishna is not perishable. He is just like the sun, and Maya is like a cloud. In the material world, we can see that there is the sun and that there are clouds and different stars and planets. The clouds may cover all this in the sky temporarily, but this covering is only apparent to our limited vision. The sun, moon, and stars are not actually covered. Similarly, Maya cannot cover the Supreme Lord. By his internal potency, he is not manifest to the less intelligent class of men. As it is stated in the third verse of this chapter, out of millions and millions of men, some try to become perfect in this human form of life. And of thousands and thousands of such perfected men, hardly one can understand what Lord Krishna is. Even if one is perfected by realization of impersonal Brahman or localized Paramatma, he cannot possibly understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead Sri Krishna without being in Krishna consciousness.
Very beautiful purport. In the middle of the purport, Prabhupada writes, Krishna knows every living entity because he is situated in every living being's heart as the super soul. Very, very important point. Our faith on Krishna, our understanding of scriptures should bring us to this understanding. And this understanding entails we cannot lie on the spiritual path. First thing that we have to give up is the cheating propensity. We cannot cheat Krishna. Srila Prabhupada writes elsewhere that Krishna is the greatest cheater. If you try to cheat him, you will be cheated. In other words, how you try to cheat him is by speaking lies. If the mistake has happened, the rule is very simple. Repent, acknowledge, and move forward. But after mistake has been done, to cover it up by making lies, you are destroying your spiritual life. Because how can you, now we may not see Paramatma, but when you are speaking to the representative of the Guru Parampara, who's standing right in front of you, which means he's representing externally the Paramatma, and you're speaking lie to the Paramatma in that sense. In the principal form, you're speaking lie. How is it that Krishna would accept your devotional service? Yes or no? Of course, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had to set an example, but Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not even accept it. Chota Haridas, who just slightly deviated because of part of his entourage. It did not even look at him ever again. So mistakes are acceptable, okay. But most importantly, when we make a mistake, when we are confused, we are bewildered, or we have got tempted out, etc. When you are asked and inquired about it, we should not speak a lie. We should be truthful. I just wanted to highlight that because we think, I can just use word jugglery and trick people around and nobody would know. Ultimately, who's going to award you back home, back to Godhead? Who's going to award us? The Supreme Lord Himself, who's residing in our heart as Paramatma. So how can we really function? So the first thing that we need to accept in our life as we begin our journey in Krishna consciousness is cultivating integrity. Be truthful to your words. Jaisa kaha, vaisa karna. Stop word jugglery, stop pretending, defending, arguing, justifying. It has no value in spiritual life. So Krishna knows every living entity. He is situated in every living being's heart as the super soul. Text number 27. Ichhadvesha samuthena. Okay, now why Krishna is speaking this verse? Now question comes. Arjuna ponders, mighty Lord, how and when the living entity gets covered by Maya and how to get free from it? Text number 28. So 27, how and when? Ichhadvesha samuthena dvandva mohena bharata sarvabhutani sammoham sargayanti parantapa. Very interesting. Ichha and dvesh. Ichha means I like this, dvesh means I do not like. Samuthena. Samuthena, just like waves in the ocean. From what? Dvandva, from duality. Mohena Bharata. Duality, illusion, ocean of Bharata. Bhutani sammoham. Sarva Bhutani sammoham. Sab jivatma. Not that you and I are exception. Sarva Bhutani sammoham. All living entities are put into such delusion. Sarge yanti parantapaha. While taking birth, parantapaha. And they go on taking birth after birth. Translation: Syanabhata conquer the foe. All living entities are born into delusion, bewildered by duality arising from desire and hate. Again, very, very classic verse. Very, very important verse. Pay attention to every line of the purport. Okay, Krishna Chandrapur, you read it, please. And go ahead, unmute. Yes.
The real constitutional position of the living entity is that of the subordination to the Supreme Lord, who is pure knowledge. When one is deluded into separation from this pure knowledge, he becomes controlled by the illusory energy and cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The illusory energy is manifested in the duality of desire and hate. Due to
Please
desire,
mark it, these lines. What is the evidence that I am under the influence of Mahamaya? I like this, I do not like this. When our working is predominated by Ichha Dvesha, then it means I am working under Mahamaya. Go ahead.
due to desire and hate, the ignorant person wants to become one with the Supreme Lord and envies Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Pure devotees who are not deluded or contaminated by desire and hate can understand that Lord Sri Krishna appears by his internal potencies, but those who are deluded by duality and nescience think that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is created by material energies. This is their misfortune. Such deluded persons symptomatically dwell in dualities of dishonor and honor, misery and happiness, woman and man, good and bad, pleasure and pain, etc., thinking, this is my wife, this is my house, I am the master of this house, I am the husband of this wife. These are the dualities of delusion. Those who are so deluded by dualities are completely foolish and therefore cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Here lies the answer of how the hippies that really came from very degraded background, but under the association of Srila Prabhupada, they went on to attain great heights in their spiritual life. What is one thing, if I ask you, that they did because of which they made so much progress? And they got rid of all the bad habits. How many of you struggle with past memories of your bad habits? Raise your hand. Now, you may or may not have done those things. You might have just seen it. Yes. Now, people who are addicted to bad things, a question arises how they were able to give up those bad things and how they were able to burn up the sinful desire and also wash up their memory of the past sinful actions. Any thoughts? We are about to conclude the chapter, so we have time for a little discussion. Any thought? What is that one thing that they did because of which they were able to rise all these great challenges? Nobody could have done it. There is no other means. Yes, by following. By following Srila Prabhupada's instruction, they allowed themselves to take shelter of Yogamaya. And those who could not follow the instruction, they allowed themselves to take shelter of Mahamaya. Why? Ichha Dvesha Samuthena. So therefore, these devotees made such a tremendous progress in such a short span of time. What could have taken lifetimes altogether, they accomplished within a single lifetime in short span of time. So that's the point here. So what is the definition of Yogamaya? Yes, sir. What is the definition of Mahamaya? I will do what I like to do. That is what the influence of Yogamaya and Mahamaya living entities. Is that clear? I'm just trying to make it in our language so we understand. How do we know we are under Yogamaya or Mahamaya? Text number 28. So when can we overcome these dualities? Yesha tu antagatam papam janana punya karmanam vedandamo nirmukta vajandama andravataha. Persons who have acted piously in previous life, and this life was sinful actions are completely eradicated and are freed from the duality of delusion. They engage themselves in my service with determination. Therefore, in our spiritual culture, we are taught about etiquettes of how to deal with Guru. In front of a Guru, the student should always consider himself a fool, regardless of how much ever erudite scholar he may be. He should never portray that I am a great knowledgeable person. Why? Okay, let me answer this. All of you are familiar with this? This is what Vedic culture and etiquette says, that we should not take a position or situation of advising, suggesting, etc., and showing off our knowledge. Although you may, it's possible for us, for example, let's say Prabhupada disciples, many of them were Western bodied. Sanskrit was never their first, second, third, not even a 10th language. They have not studied Sanskrit for far, far, far off. So some of them had become spiritual masters, but because Sanskrit was not the first language for them or even the 10th language for them, it could have been very difficult for many of them to really pick up Sanskrit verses, yes? But now they were preaching all over the world. They had many disciples from India. Some were from Brahminical families who had been reciting Bhagavad Gita from childhood. So now imagine you have a student who knows all the 700 verses. You know the concept, but you don't know verses. And if imagine this teacher is speaking on certain subject matter, and he's like, he starts quoting a verse, but Sanskrit is not his language. He says, Savadharma Parityaja, what next? He's not, but he's able to give that English translation perfectly. What would you be thinking in that situation? Guru ko itna bhi nahi pata? He can't even quote this one shloka, Savadharma Parityaja Mamekam Shanamaja. So how many will say you will interject, saying, Gurudev, Sarvadharma Parityaja Mamekam Shanamaja. Remember now? Should I tell you next two lines? How many we think will do that? Well, to the degree we have envy in our heart, to the degree we'll do that, because we want to. We have this material consciousness of climbing up the hierarchy. We join as a simple, humble devotee with the goal of becoming a temple president within the next 1 year. This is the mindset of Kali Yuga Prani today. They want to, get into the top position, thinking that that is what will define my success. But unfortunately, that is not what defines success. Being in the role of a leader, being in the role of a temple president or a guru is actually a thankless task. It's a service which is taken upon out of gratitude for one's teacher to do it. Otherwise, in Bhakti, nobody has any interest for this kind of leadership roles, because you have to unnecessarily accept so many reactions of other people, help other people dealing with their mind's challenges. So the point I was making here, the culture, why was I speaking on culture? I just lost it for a second. We were talking about rice. We were talking about, I understand I was saying, how can we follow somebody if we think I am better off in giving suggestions? Yes or no? In a relationship where you start giving suggestions, where you start giving advices, can you really wholeheartedly follow? What do you think? How many of you say, yes, we can still follow whatever the person says? How many think, no, it will be difficult because I'll begin to doubt whatever he says because I would think, no, what I think is better than what he's thinking. How many of you agree with that? Raise your hands. Raise your hands. You think the moment you start giving advices, then you will think, Are, when he instructs you, do this service. Oh, he doesn't know what is appropriate to be done. This is not the best time to do the service. Somebody else can do it. I'm so qualified. I should be only sitting on Vyasas and giving classes. Why I need to do prasadam serving? He doesn't understand my value. Getting it? So to protect oneself from this kind of a situation and false pride, we're already intoxicated. We are intoxicated with false pride when we don't have anything. We have not accomplished anything. What have we accomplished in our life? What did we do in our career? What great things did we accomplish in our academics? Or what great character, purity we had? Nothing. We are still so much intoxicated. Yes, you look at the people outside. Everyone is so proud of his penny. On top of it, now you don't follow this Vaishnava etiquette and culture, and you start, freely giving advices. Whose spiritual life is getting destroyed here? Whose spiritual life is getting destroyed? Individual's spiritual life. To protect that, we have certain Vaishnava culture and etiquettes, and we should study that and understand that. Before getting into this role of giving advices, what should be done for the students' welfare, what should be done this and that. So we have to be careful of that. So at least, first of all, we should identify, do I have a teacher or do I have a friend? In a friendly relationship, you can give advice. In a relationship with a teacher, we should not open our mouth unless we are asked for it. That's it. And you're opening your mouth, you're just committing aparadh. It's a matter of time, you'll get a reaction for it. And it's unavoidable. So we have to be careful of it. So here now Krishna is saying, verse number 28, who have acted piously, whose all sinful actions have stopped and reactions have been eradicated. Only such a person with determination can engage in my devotional service. Purport, please. Krishna Chandra Prabhu. Okay, 1 second. Now everyone can unmute. So go ahead.
Those eligible for elevation to the transcendental position are mentioned in this verse. For those who are sinful, atheistic, foolish, and deceitful, it is very difficult to transcend the duality of desire and hate. Only those who have passed their lives in practicing the regulative principles of religion, who have acted piously and who have conquered sinful reactions, can accept devotional service and gradually rise to the pure knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then gradually they can meditate in trance on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the process of being situated on the spiritual platform. This elevation is possible in Krishna consciousness in the association of pure devotees, for in the association of great devotees, one can be delivered from delusion. It is stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam 5.5.2 that if one actually wants to be liberated, he must render service to the devotees. Mahat sevam dharvam ahur vimukte. But one who associates with materialistic people is on the path leading to the darkest region of existence, tamo davaram, yositam sange sangam. All the devotees of the Lord traverse this earth just to recover the conditioned souls from their delusion. The impersonalists do not know that forgetting their constitutional position as a subordinate to the Supreme Lord is the greatest violation of God's law. Unless one is reinstated in his own constitutional position, it is not possible to understand the Supreme Personality or to be fully engaged in his transcendental loving service with determination.
29. Intelligent persons who are endeavoring for liberation from old age, death, take refuge in me in devotional service. They're actually Brahman because they entirely know everything about transcendental activities. Purport. Birth, death, old age, and disease affect this material body but not the spiritual body. There's no birth, death, old age, and disease for the spiritual body. So one who attains the spiritual body becomes one of the associates of the Lord and engages in eternal devotional service. Aham Brahmasmi, I am spirit. It is said one should understand that he is Brahman. This Brahman conception of life is also in devotional service. The pure devotees are transcendently situated on the Brahman platform and they know everything about transcendental activities. Next paragraph, last few lines. Only persons who perform activities in Krishna consciousness, Mam Ashritya, are actually entitled to be called Brahman because they're actually endeavoring to reach the Krishna planet. Such persons who have no misgivings about Krishna and thus they are factually Brahman. Those who engage in worshipping the form or archa of the Lord, or who are engaged in meditation of the Lord, simply for liberation from material bondage, also know by the grace of the Lord the purports of Brahman, Adibhuta, etc., as explained by the Lord in the next chapter. Text number 30, translation. Those in full consciousness of me, who know me, the Supreme Lord, to be the governing principle of the material manifestation of the Devatas, of all methods of sacrifices, can understand, know me to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even at the time of death. So there are 7 subject matters are discussed in the text number 29 and 30th, which would be in 8th chapter asked by Arjuna. 7 plus 1, 8. And the 8th question would be how to attain you at the time of death. So these 8 questions will form the basis of the 8th chapter. Krishna Chandra Prabhu, please read the purport of 30th verse entirely.
Persons acting in Krishna consciousness are never deviated from the path of entirely understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the transcendental association of Krishna consciousness, one can understand how the Supreme Lord is the governing principle of the material manifestation and even of the demigods. Gradually, by such transcendental association, one becomes convinced of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. At the time of death, such Krishna conscious person can never forget Krishna. Naturally, he is thus promoted to the planet of the Supreme Lord, Goloka Vrindavan. This 7th chapter particularly explains how one can become a fully Krishna conscious person. The beginning of Krishna consciousness is association of persons who are Krishna conscious. Such association is spiritual and puts one directly in touch with the Supreme Lord, and by his grace one can understand Krishna to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. At the same time, one can really understand the constitutional position of the living entity and how the living entity forgets Krishna and becomes entangled in material activities. By gradual development of Krishna consciousness in good association, the living entity can understand that due to forgetfulness of Krishna, he has become conditioned by the laws of material nature. He can also understand that this human form of life is an opportunity to regain Krishna consciousness and that it should be fully utilized to attain the causeless mercy of the Supreme Lord. Many subjects have been discussed in this chapter. The man in distress, the inquisitive man, the man in want of material necessities, knowledge of Brahman, knowledge of Paramatma, liberation from birth, death, and diseases, and worship of the Supreme Lord. However, he who is actually elevated in Krishna consciousness does not care for the different process. He simply directly engages himself in activities of Krishna consciousness and thereby factually attains his constitutional position as an eternal servitor of Lord Krishna. In such a situation, he takes pleasure in hearing and glorifying the Supreme Lord in pure devotional service. He is convinced that by his doing so, all his objectives will be fulfilled. This determination faith is called Trida Vrata, and it is the beginning of Bhakti Yoga or transcendental loving service. That is the verdict of all scriptures. This 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is the substance of the conviction. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purports to the 7th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, the matter of knowledge of the Absolute.
Hare Krishna. So here we conclude the 7th chapter. And tomorrow being Sunday, now Sunday morning, we're going to keep it off as announced last week. So every Sunday morning we'll not have the discussion. So we'll resume from Monday morning onwards, the 8th chapter, which is a small chapter, only has 28 verses. And then we're going to come to some very, very sweet chapter like 9th chapter, etc. So we'll see you after a good weekend on Monday morning. Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada ki, Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki.